Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Investor Frame podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sparks, and on this show, we ask successful real estate investors and entrepreneurs to share their stories so we can all learn from their experiences and get closer to the things that we want in life. Today, I'm here with a good friend of mine, Jay Bhakta. Jay and I have known each other for a little over, close to 2 years now at this point. We started out in the crypto world and we found our way into Dan Nicholson's world in the CCA. You guys have heard us talk about Dan's book, Rigging the Game, and we learned how to implement all of those strategies in this program that Dan put on. But Jay is a father and husband of two kids, age 16 and 17. He just sold his accounting business, his tax business, that he ran for over 23 years. And so, now he's in this position where he's transitioning into learning more about how to invest passively into real estate. And he's also working on a new project he calls Base Case and Build, where he helps kids learn to implement the same exact tools and principles that we learn how to implement inside the Whale Club. Jay, welcome in. It is a pleasure to have you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So Jay, we start every show off with a 6-word update. So what is your 6-word update today?
Mine, finding my path into real estate.
I like it. And how is that going?
Great. I mean, I was kind of stalled for a little while there and came across the Well Club, been to a few calls and already made some connections and, invested in my first real estate this past week.
Fantastic. Was that with Pete?
Yeah.
That's cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Finding my path into real estate. And, it's like you have had a pretty extensive career as an entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about your background. I sort of breezed through it, but tell us a little bit about the last couple decades really in entrepreneurship for you and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been a business owner for 23 years. I've always wanted to get into real estate, but I always felt like, owning a business was the way to go to get the most return on your money. So I just kept opening businesses, putting more on my plate, building this empire and putting more work on my plate. But I always wanted to get into real estate and, have, build my net worth in that aspect, more passive, income. But I just didn't know how to get my foot in the door. I'm just overwhelmed when I hear all these different strategies and, some people say you should do this and some people say that's a lot of work and you're going to get, your life is going to get consumed. I'm like, well, what do you really do? I mean, how do you really go about making an investment? So that's what I'm excited about joining Well Club for is, the concepts that you're teaching, I've learned it as with you in CCA, and now I could put it into use for something that I really want to do, which is real estate.
Talk about the CCA real quick, because I don't think a lot of people who listen to this are familiar with that, because, we just talk about how to apply it. But you and I went through this program together back in, starting in January of last year, I guess. Well, is that 2022? So when we started that? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what the CCA is.
For me, I joined CCA because I have a history and habit of just aping into things, all or nothing thinking. I'm a risk taker. I felt, I grew up that way and I was taught that way, that taking risk is the best way to get ahead. Sitting back and not doing anything is, not the answer. So I just jumped into things, and I was like, hey, it's a numbers game. The more things you invest in, the higher chance you get of finding that thing that's going to be, put you over the top. But that's why I joined CCA. I was like, hey, I need some frameworks. I need some principles. I need some methods to control the decisions that I make, because I'm getting wrecked more often than not. Yeah. And that's what CCA has done for me. It's provided me some framework. So if an opportunity comes up, I could put it to the test. I have something that could go to a toolbox where I can make a sound decision instead of kind of just wing it, and it just feels good knowing that, hey, I have something to make a calculated decision off of, instead of, hey, this person told me this is going to be a great investment, so I'll take his word for it. I was like, a second, let me actually dig a little deeper now, which I can, knowing what I know from CCA.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really well said. It's hard to describe what it is in like a really succinct, way because it's so comprehensive and it's so unlike anything I've ever been a part of. I don't know people thinking like this. And part of what I think you and I came to realize was like, well, there's a reason why. We learned this from a mentor who learned this from with Bill Gates, right? Like this is how the guys that are running some of the largest, companies in the world who have done some of the most extraordinary things, Elon Musk, people like this, Bill Gates, there's a reason they reason differently than the rest of us, right? They reason from the ground up. They know how to reason from first principles. And that's sort of what Dan taught us. And he gave us a language to use so that we can take this and then go apply it to our specific domains. And so, obviously you joined the Whale Club and we'll talk more about passively investing and how we're going about that. But talk to me about what you're doing with Base Case and Build.
Yeah, going through and learning all this stuff that I learned from CCA, the connections from CCA with Dr. Jeff Spencer, Nick Peterson, I learned a lot. And the whole time I'm thinking, I just wish I would have known this when I was younger, because I look back at the decisions and investments that I made, especially the ones that I got wrecked on. And I'm like, I could have easily avoided some of those decisions. And some of the times I just didn't account for what's most important to me, which was, time, energy, and I spread myself too thin way too many times trying to make something work. But if I would have just, sat back and applied some of the stuff that I've learned, I wouldn't have made those decisions. So, knowing this, I have two kids, ages 16 and 11 now. How do I teach them what I've learned, and so they don't make the same mistakes that I made? And so I started this program called Base Case and Build. I started with a few kids. I was like, let me teach them a new principle and framework each week. I'll share my experiences, share some more real life experiences. I tasked them to go talk to their parents about it. So then now they're creating a common language with their parents and they're getting their experience as well. So now they're hearing it from all these different angles and they're learning the same things that we've learned at a younger age. So then they don't have to go through the heartache and mistakes, and deal with trauma that we've had to deal with at an older age and try to fix it. They could have. I mean, they're gonna make mistakes. I mean, everybody's gonna make mistakes, but at least they could go back and look at it and say, hey, oh, this is why I made this mistake, because I have this toolbox. I just didn't use it properly, but next time I'll make sure I use it right.
What are some of the decisions that you find a lot of your students are facing? Like I understand the real estate side, right? Like a lot of us are using real estate to accomplish something, but I'm curious, what are the decisions that you see a lot of your kids going through? Like what ages are we talking about here? What's how are they applying this?
Most of the kids are ages 9 and up, so they could really relate to sports. A lot of them are in activities, their friend circles, the groups that they hang out with, and the experiences that they're having there. But a lot of the things that they could relate to is the activities that they're involved in. So we use a lot of examples. They use a lot of examples. Playing your game. Are they, does it fit into what they really are passionate about in that sport, in that position, or what their role that they're playing in that game? So then in being able to relate to one aspect helps them relate to other aspects of their lives too. So it's just that's usually their starting point. They could start there and build off of that and see it in other areas.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just went through the last week, like our favorite sport or hobby when we were kids, that exercise. And that's funny because they're going through it right now. And to recognize that, like, while you're playing it as a kid, it's probably pretty powerful to you as an adult later in life, right?
Yeah, we're dissecting it 20 years after the fact. And but that was a great exercise in Wall Club because it helped me see how I was when I was playing sports when I was younger and how I am now with my business and my life. And there's a lot of correlations. There were some weaknesses that I had when I was playing sports as well, and I could see it the way I am with some of the way I run my businesses and my team. So it does help, and recognizing it and seeing it, and you're like, okay, let's make some adjustments and correct that, because it didn't work when I was playing sports back then. It's not going to work now. So I need to change something here or make some adjustments and say, hey, this really worked when I was playing sports, and this is where I'm strong. This is where my strength is. So then you can focus on that.
Right. And you can see, these parallels with how you played as a kid, with how you play now, and, the same strengths that you had and the same weaknesses that you had. Like, a lot of times they just show up still to this day. Like, we're still those same kids. And I thought that exercise, because Randy first did it with us, or maybe he just mentioned it and I did it because I was curious going through it. And yeah, it's just startling how similar you still are. We're still the same person, at least when you're playing, when you are playing your game. And what I found was doing that exercise made me realize that I was not building a business that was in line with that, and I needed to change. Hence the investor frame, right? Knowing what I know now about, going through this information. And again, I think that's what I learned through the CCA. Is it's not like we've all read these books and we've heard these concepts in one way or another. The question really isn't like it's all about changing your behavior. How do we actually get our behavior to change because we understand these things? And Dan calls this double loop learning, and so it's so powerful. I would imagine that's why you're gaining so much traction with, teaching kids this, because a lot of parents, I think, understand this as they get older, and they don't want their kids to make the same mistakes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They value, they want their kids to be happy. They want them to be financially stable. They want them to be confident. They want to do something that they're passionate about. So there's all these tools they want, but it's kind of how do you get that message across to kids?
Mm-hmm.
So these frameworks help. I mean, the investor frame is, that's huge, because you never really think about it. You might be stuck in a place, but if you ask that question to yourself, you really start thinking about a second, would I invest in this at this time? And that's helped me move on from the businesses. And you mentioned that I sold my tax businesses, but I use the investor frame to help me with that too.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I started with the solvable problem, trying to figure out what it is that I really want, closer over more. And am I getting closer to it, or am I just chasing more? And I realized that I was chasing more. I mean, there's so many things that I said were really important to me, but for some reason I was stuck on the more part of it. And when I sat back and actually looked at it, like, most of the stuff I could do right now. So what am I waiting on? It's just sitting down and dissecting it and realizing that, I asked myself that question. It goes, hey, given this point in time, if my tax businesses were up for sale or available for me to purchase, would I buy into it? And that answer was no. I would not. I wouldn't touch it. And that was my answer. But also at the same time, it's getting rid of your financial, your income, your stability is a little bit of a risk and challenge. So that's where the barbell strategy really came into place, because like, hey, let me look at where I'm at from from a bigger picture. If I took this out of the picture, where would I fall on the barbell? And that gave me some comfort, knowing that, hey, my barbell is still balanced, even though I get rid of my tax offices. And that really, really helped me make the decision to move on. I was like, hey, I'm not gonna end up on a street, without any money. I'm pretty stable without it. I'm just chasing more.
Mm. Well, you got a barbell right behind your head, and I think that's fitting, because like that framework made such an impact on me as well. I realized I was loading so many things in the middle of the bar. Can you describe what the barbell strategy is and means for those who may not be familiar with that?
Yeah, so you have two sides of the barbell. You have the reliable side, and you have the side that's high risk. And then you have the middle, which is not serving any purpose. Right? You're just stuck. maybe you're hoping that it becomes reliable and you get what you want out of it. But more often than not, you're just putting all your energy and time into something in the middle, trying to make something out of it, and it's not going anywhere. So if you ever find yourself in the middle and you're not, if you're on the one side where it's high risk, you have the potential to get a good return out of it, right? But if you're stuck in the middle where you're not getting any return out of it, you're not getting any benefits, and you're stuck. So then you need to get out of that position, say that's not serving what anything. So I looked at where I was. I had my tax business, which was reliable when it came to money, but when it came to time and energy, it was not reliable at all. So when I look at it, when I take the two things to put it together, I was kind of stuck in the middle. So it was time for me to move on from the tax businesses. And then I said, if I move the tax businesses out from this barbell, well, I still have income coming in. So, and I still have my high risk investments that I'm making. So now I have my barbell is balanced. I just don't have anything in the middle, that opens up a whole bunch of options for me to look for other opportunities now. The barbell, that the tax business keeping me stuck in the middle was taking all my options off the table because I was so focused on that, trying to, go through the grind every season, tax season, and dealing with the pains and heartache there, that it took a lot off the table, and I could never, find anything else to invest in on either side of the barbell.
Well, and you even said it yourself. It's like you'd always intended to get real estate. I mean, it's no secret that real estate is probably one of the biggest, fastest and most consistent paths to wealth, right? I think they say something like 90% of millionaires own real estate. And there's just no secret there. Buy something, invest in it for the long term, and real estate has a tendency to move up and to the right. And, over time, it's been consistently providing returns. But the problem is, if all your resources, your time, your energy, your attention, all these different things, your money, if it's all tied up in something that's loaded in the middle of the bar, well, you don't have any options like what you just said, right? It's hard to even, and it feels overwhelming because there is so many ways to make money in real estate. And you just sort of because you don't have the time and the resources to learn about this stuff, take micro steps, apply the soft offense techniques, all these different things we've learned, because our resources are so consumed and we've loaded weight in the middle of the bar, we have no options now. And what I love about what you did, and, kudos to you, because I would imagine it's really difficult to let go of a puppy that you named 2 decades ago. Everybody, you and I are familiar with naming the puppy. And it's like, we name that puppy and then we got to take the puppy back.
Yep.
And, we don't want to, because that's my puppy. And you were able to do that through the process of going through the CCA, working with Dan the same way I was. And you had this amazing transformation. I did too. I got rid of my businesses and completely aligned with, something different. But I want to hear more about how you're building your barbell out now, because you got rid of the tax business. You took took that weight out of the middle of the bar. And how have you recaptured and reallocated your resources, or how are you thinking about that now to accomplish your solvable problem?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing where I'm at and how, since it's already balanced, I know I don't need to take on too much risks. And, I know I don't have to, it's not necessary. It's just, if I did do that, it would just be me just chasing more, being greedy. So, I'm one of those, that's in a place of, hey, I need a reliable investment. Doesn't have to be a big return, but as long as it doesn't consume my time and energy. So a good passive investment fits into what I need to do for real estate. So just knowing that, if I didn't have the barbell, I might chase something that's hey, I'm going to get a bigger return here and not think about my time and energy and for no reason. I mean, like, but knowing that where I'm at, I can say, hey, why even put that risk on the table? I'm in a good place right now. I just need to build my net worth and not pay taxes, you know? I mean, I need to take some strategies that will help me alleviate this tax burden that I have every year, and just and keep my time and energy to myself. Use it for what I really want to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's the point, right? What does Dan say? The biggest risk we run is not getting what we want out of life.
Yeah.
And I think what I also learned going through that process is we don't need as much money as we maybe thought that we did. When Dan helped me go through the process of working through the solvable problem, writing down your core priorities, writing out your preferences, add them all up, like, it wasn't as big as I was thinking that it was. I didn't need as much as I thought that I needed. And actually, I was a lot closer than what I realized. And I think you went through the same thing, is like, actually, the goal here is we need to take risk off the table. We need to find places where we can build the reliable side of the barbell out, because we've got way too much on the upside and in the middle.
For sure. It's just it's crazy how many people just don't even think about that. They just like they don't even know what it is that they want. They never look at the solvable problem. And like you said, 90% of the stuff that me and my wife came up with, that we sat down, she came up with her solvable problem, I came up with mine. 90% of the stuff we could do right now. And the 10% of the stuff we don't have, is a lot of it is just materialistic stuff, just like, it's fine, but the most important stuff we could do right now, and knowing that has changed my life quite a bit. It's just put me in a better place. And what CCA has done is, having sold my businesses, it puts you in a state of uncertainty. But I'm actually excited about it. I feel confident being in that state, because I know that I have the toolbox and the frameworks to make a good decision whatever I do next. And you talk about time and randomness. Now I feel comfortable, having that, like, hey, waiting for opportunities to come to me. Obviously, you still got to do the legwork. You got to do the research. Joining the Well Club is part of the process for me. Connect, network, and then the right opportunities come to you. You just gotta, you're not chasing. You're just waiting for, you're putting yourself in a position to make things happen.
Well, and before we had these frameworks, it felt like too many options was overwhelming. It created a lot of anxiety for me. And I mean, was that the case for you? Like, there's so many options, but because I have no real way to filter them or process any of this, it caused overwhelm and anxiety. Have you ever felt that way?
Yeah, I mean, I was putting more on my plate. I was creating options. Like, I was trying to make things happen, force things to happen. So instead of just waiting and, for the right thing to happen. So, when I started talking with Dr. Jeff Spencer, I told him I wanted to contribute in some way. I wanted to be more present for the kids. I want to teach all the stuff that I learned to the kids. And then I had all these ideas and all these options that I had created, and he just like, okay, you just need to sit back and let time and randomness do its part. Because if you try to force something to happen now, it's going to be the wrong thing, and at the time it didn't really make sense, because I was like, well, time is money. I was like, I need to act on something. I need to do something. It was engraved in me to always do something. And slowing down actually is what helped me create the idea for Base Case and Build, and create it. I don't think it would have happened. I probably would have done the wrong thing if I didn't allow for it.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I know that we all have this language that we speak, and we say things like time and randomness, and like people are like, what are you talking about? And Nick has this way of saying, time and randomness are undefeated. Time is undefeated. You're not going to beat time. Good luck. And you're also not going to beat random things. And this concept completely changed the way I thought about options. And, it's like, could you have predicted 2 or 3 months before you started Base Case and Builder, you had the idea that was going to present itself? Like, no.
Absolutely not. No.
But so, when you look back at some of the best opportunities that have ever happened to you, you could not have predicted it even maybe even a few days before it happened. There's no way to have known that, because random things are undefeated and they constantly are happening, and we're making our best guess into the future of what we think it's going to be. And we're not allowing for the two undefeated heavyweight champions of the world, time and randomness, to play a part. And, I almost think of it as let go of how you think it needs to happen and focus on what it is that you want, and be open to all of the options to help you get there, as Dan likes to say, with the least amount of risk and the least amount of effort. But that requires what Dr. Jeff calls restraint. Requires a lot of restraint. So Jay, for two people, you and I, who are that's a tough thing to learn for us. How have you used restraint in the last year after you learning CCA and, building Base Case and building, your real estate portfolio now?
And that's been the magic word. I mean, that's been huge for me. I mean, just a little bit of background. I mean, I'm a gambler. I mean, I like taking risks. I like jumping. I like doing things. And I mean, yeah, it's the all or nothing thinking, the moonshots, get rich stuff. I mean, hey, what's gonna be my next thing that's gonna get me over the top? It's just always constantly thinking. But then, now I'm more restrained. I see it in my, with the way I am with the kids, my wife, just in life in general. It's a good place to be. You don't put yourself, you don't make yourself overwhelmed all the time, thinking that have to, chase something. But being restrained and being in that space is just, it's been huge for me. It feels good to be there. It took some work, because I was an extreme case. I was on the wrong side of the barbell on that one, and I had to work myself to the reliable side, which, I think just the presence of the people around you, the constant, the community, the conversations, Dr. Jeff Spencer's, the way he operates, the way he talks, you just kind of, you kind of feed off of that, and it becomes ingrained in you.
Yeah, Randy would say, do the reps, right?
Yeah.
And if you do the reps, you put in the work, it just starts becoming easier and easier. And you still make mistakes, but it's what we want to do is just make less of them, right? Yeah.
Being able to be centered again, you get off path, which we all are going to, but you have the tools to get back centered, and it's easier to do. But if you don't have that, then you could easily just go way off path and, get stuck somewhere that you don't want to be,
Well, Nick calls that bumpers, which I love that. Just makes so much sense, right? We got to set up these bumpers in our life so that we don't, get too far off track. Because boy, is the human mindset pesky, as Dr. Jeff would say, right? And it sneaks up, and he always gets first dibs, and he's always there, and you can't turn him off. You just kind of got to build a system that accounts for it. And that's what we've done. And so Jay, as you joined Whale Club because another phrase that we like to say is macro belief. You have a macro belief in real estate, and see that as a long-term way to diversify your wealth, but also add more to the reliable side, right? And that's a personal preference. And so, tell me a little bit about why Whale Club helps you do that, as someone who really understands certainty and understands restraint and understands optionality. Why is the Whale Club a good fit for what you're doing as a passive investor?
I look at all these different masterminds and groups that are out there. I don't think they really focus on the certainty side of things. I think that's a missing in a lot of these different options, groups that you have. And when I saw the Well Club and what you're teaching in Well Club, it aligns with the way I think. It's the way I want to live my life. And it's, if I could live the life the way I want to and get into real estate, that makes sense. And that's what I think Well Club is. I thought about joining some of these other real estate groups, and I just don't think they have your best interest in mind, because there's like go 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 go. I don't know if they account for time and energy. I don't think they account for what you really want in life, closer over more, all these principles in CCA. So it just didn't feel right. But Well Club just makes sense, and I could already tell after a couple of weeks of going into it that you got the right type of people, the connections, everything that you're teaching. It just aligns with where I want to be.
Because there's not a right or wrong way to do that, right? And everybody who's trying to tell you that there is probably has something to sell you, because you can make a lot of money selling strategies, right? That's how most internet marketers are doing it. They're selling strategies. This is the way to do it, or this is the way to do it. But what we learned is that there's just like an infinite number of ways to do it. And it's all about aligning with your own personal preferences. And so, what we've tried to build with Whale Club is one, a common language around the solvable problem and certainty. And solvable problem is another way of just saying clarity. Like, you've got to have clarity on what it is that you want, who you are, what are your preferences, what does closer versus more mean to you? Because if we don't take the time to define that, then the strategies just end up becoming usually us chasing after more. We could make more money if we did this, or more X, Y, Z, whatever it is. So not only are we trying to create a common language around certainty, which is the foundation, but we're also trying to connect both active real estate investors, which are also, these are people that are going out and usually they're either flipping houses, they're developing houses, they're wholesaling houses, they're doing some active income, usually to create active income to then go buy passive income, right? That's the barbell that they're trying to accomplish. But we also want to bring and connect passive investors with these active investors that have opportunities for investment, right? And yourself as a passive investor, you're not trying to get active, right? You're just trying to evaluate options and create a system where you've got all these different options. And it just so happens that they all speak the same language around certainty. And so it becomes more or less a menu, right? Where, really, what's the number that we need to hit our solvable problem? Now we can properly allocate our resources along there. And I know that you mentioned this earlier in the show that you just invested with Pete. Do you mind telling us a little bit about where that fits on your barbell, why you chose that option, and what it is you like about single family rental funds?
Yeah, so when I was talking with Pete, I could tell that he's gone through the program, because his first thing is, hey, what is it that you really are looking to accomplish? What is that you really want? What's going to bring you closer to what you want? So it just helps that we had a common language, and I told him what it was that I really wanted. And he just laid down those options for me, because a lot of the stuff he does quite a bit of other types of investments, but he just mentioned the ones that, hey, I think these are the ones that might fit into your side of the barbell. And a couple of the options weren't available at the time, but he's like, he'll keep me in mind for those. But yeah, so I invested in one. It's a pretty safe investment. It's passive. I'm not involved, and I get a return on it, and it just fit right into what I was looking to do. So it just helped that it was easy for him to steer into that direction, having a common language.
Makes it easier to communicate. It also shows that like we're all building, a lot of us are just building businesses off of these principles now, because they just make so much sense. And yeah, as a passive investor that's thinking about how do I handle all these different strategies? I mean, there's apartment syndications, there's development deals, there's rental funds, single family, there's short-term rental funds. I mean, there's like an infinite number of ways to make money in real estate. And that's a good thing if you have the right frameworks to filter those options and you have a trusted community that speaks that language. And so, it's just cool to finally see. It's cool to see we've spent so much time with the active investors, and now we're starting to see guys like yourself and other passive investors come along. And that's a great place to be because you have all these different options and you have, again, trusted people who speak this language. And so if you guys are interested in learning more about that, you can go check out realestatecertainty.com. That's our Whale Club website. You can, kind of learn more about what we do, how we apply these principles. You can watch some videos from some of our members talk about that. But, Jay, it's just, I appreciate you and your efforts, not only to take what you and I went through together at the same time, and we could have never known we were going to build these other, businesses right off of this at the time. I went and, built Whale Club, and you went and built Base Case and Build. And it's the same information, just applied to different domains. We're just applying it to real estate, and you're applying it to youth development, is how I would say it.
Yeah.
So yeah, look at us now.
Yeah. Much, definitely in a good place.
Yeah. Awesome. Jay, what's something you'd like to leave the audience with, as someone who's been in business for 2 decades? What's your greatest lesson learned, and what can you tell people who, are trying to figure out their solvable problem?
Yeah. These principles that you teach in Whale Club, they're super valuable. I mean, it just depending on where you are in your life, it actually doesn't really matter where you are in life, because you could apply these principles to both personal and business and investments. So it helps you in every aspect of your life. So you don't just get the value. Like what I'm seeing in Whale Club is when you're teaching this stuff, these principles, all this valuable stuff, it's going to help improve their lives. And it's going to help them on the financial aspect of things too. So you're just giving that full package. So don't just think it's just about investments in real estate. It's how you live your life. You'll see improvements there as well.
And that's what it's all about, right? Learning how to get what we want out of life and using our investments and our businesses and things as tools to help us get there. And, I feel fortunate to have learned this and been given the language from our mentors. We owe everything, in this to them. And so thank you, Jay, for joining me today. And, thanks for your support and ongoing support with everything we're doing. And best of luck to you with Base Case and Build. I can't wait to see how you continue building that business out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was great.
Yep. And so for everybody else, we encourage you to use the investor frame. So knowing what you know now in the conversation that Jay and I just had, ask yourself, what do you need to change in your life or your business to help you get closer to the things that matter most to you? Again, thank you, Jay, for joining us today, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.